Here comes
Hey,
our
come
guest.
on, swing on in. Hey, so we are beyond excited because our Just Talking guest in the studio is director Simon Lees. Oh, you guys can come
Yeah.
in close. You know, you can kind of
Chris
get to know
does
me
not
now.
smell like marijuana this
No,
morning.
I do not
so
smell
you
like
can get
marijuana this
really
morning,
close.
so, yeah.
Go ahead.
those are for the weekends, Marissa. We got duties to do.
I know
okay?
he's growing up. He's growing up.
We're growing up so big, but I just want to say we got director Simon Lees and we got Maya Schnaider in the studio, and you guys got this phenomenal new story play that I advocate for all the listeners out there to go check out. It's The Musket and the Rat. And just to start off right up from the gate, can you guys kind of explain a little bit about who you are?
I'm Simon Lees. I'm the director of Musket and the Rat, and
I'm Maya Schnaider, Israeli-American actress.
American actress. And where'd you-
Israeli-American.
Israeli American. Don't you
Israeli
forget
American.
that tag,
Dual
my
national.
friend.
So, were you born in the U.S. or were you from?
So it's a long story. Basically, my family is completely Israeli. I was born in the U.S. because my parents, they were supposed to live here for a year. They ended up staying 10 years. So when I was 7, they moved back to Israel. And then I came here after I finished my military service for school.
Oh, wow. So, like, how does somebody just jump from going into the arts, like theater arts? Because I can only imagine you probably had some parents that are like, Maya, I want you to be a doctor. I want you to go into a profession where I feel like you can have a great job security. And Simon, you're kind of giggling too. Have you guys felt these kind of pressures from your parents or just from long colleagues?
oh yeah, well they wanted her to be a social worker. So
Social worker.
Well,
okay.
Which
I'm
is
Human
right up
rights
the alley.
activist, or-
That's right up the alley of acting.
Totally.
Because people do come
Totally.
have a
Okay.
cathartic reaction and to experience the human essence without actually putting it back on them. And that's
Totally.
what actors, we are the living therapist. Pay us.
That is
Hey,
very
yes.
true. Agreed.
And, but why? How would you agree with that? I mean, how is that the case when you're on stage and you kind of bring these kind of performance to life, or is it because you're trying to, try to show a difference that we can make change in the theater?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, personally, for me, it's also more therapeutic for me myself. Like, I feel I'm a very introverted person, and a lot of times I find that I don't always have the words that I want to say to express myself. And then through these characters, especially with Musket, like she is such a phenomenally strong, badass. Sorry,
Right.
yeah. She's a very strong person, and that's something that I aspire to be. And so, really, through her voice, I was able to build my own confidence. And for me, that's the therapy in it.
So tell me about. We'll go with Simon with this. So tell me, because I know you are a British actor that's gone now into your first directional debut
Wait,
in
what
the
part
theater
of
realm.
Britain were you born?
no, I'm a British American actor, so my
You're
parents are all
also from
from
here. Hey, you anchor babies.
You anchor babies.
Get
Yeah.
out of here.
Yeah.
Get out of
Try
here.
to take some credit.
What's up?
Well,
Okay.
why do,
But
why-
then, where are your parents from? What part of?
So my mom is from the south, and my dad's from the north.
my dad,
so-
my
Wow.
husband is
This
from
seems-
Blackpool, North England.
This
Ooh,
sounds
I've
like
been
an,
to Blackpool
This
quite
sounds
a
like
You've
an
been there a lot?
interesting.
Yeah.
This sounds like some Game of Thrones kind of.
It is.
Sorry,
It's
I'm
really
on right now.
Westeros.
Look at the red hair. Man.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I'm born north of the
You're
wall.
like, I'm Targaryen.
Yeah.
North of the wall, and I'm not coming back, right?
Yeah, total wildling.
Oh my God.
So when you're thinking about this play, Musket and the Rat, how did that kind of story come into fruition, and how did you get offered that kind of role?
Well, I'm the directing the play, but
Yeah.
it fell serendipity. I mean, it fell into my lap. I'd been wanting to produce a play for about a year. I was looking for something really gritty, really raw, intense, and something that spoke to me based on some of the things that I'd gone through in my past and in my childhood.
Yes.
And Sammy Horowitz, the writer of this play, he just happened to have this thing, and I said, "Well, would you let me read it?" And he let me read it, and after reading it, I mean, it hit me like a hammer blow to the head, and it was Russian concussion.
The Russian concussion.
RussianConcussionStunts.com.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he,
because I hear he's a huge hardcore stunt devil. and
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
he
he's,
works on what, Chicago PD.
yeah, he's in Chicago now. I think he's working on
How does
something.
he balance that kind of lifestyle? Do you know? Does he give you any kind of inside scoop? Nothing.
No, he's
He-
close.
He doesn't. He
incredible.
keeps it really deep and close.
I mean, he's he keeps it pretty close. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a working guy. You got to keep it, you
But I know that this story is really intense, right? Because it's really kind of dealing with the kind of, this drug opioid kind of the situation that's been happening, definitely in the country. And I definitely
Like in a
believe.
few sentences, how would you describe the plot of the play without giving away?
Ooh,
Ooh,
a
so you're better.
hood rat, ratchet, real mean mean spirit, strong-willed girl living in her mom's basement trying to get by, and selling heroin's probably the best way to get by.
Wow.
That's very true.
This
Yeah.
sounds
There's,
like
there's a good market for it.
Oh yeah.
Pretty good, yeah.
Well, I always make that joke that, us millennials, we're like the worst drug dealers ever. Like literally, because like over during the New Year's, like there was this big old story that was trending all over Twitter about all these kids thinking they were buying cocaine, right?
Oh, in
And then
the
all of
Bay
a
Area?
sudden, they would just grab the Ziploc baggie and they go, oh, just because it's got a print of a skull candy on it, it's got to be legit, right? I mean, that's death. And it's, and it was meth. So kids
Are
are
you
just not
serious?
knowing
Well,
what they're
there's
taking.
a lot of the cocaine up in the Bay Area right now is laced with fentanyl.
Oh,
So
Yes.
people are
God.
actually dying because they're going out. And a lot of them are too are like that one-off partier, so they don't do drugs. And then New Year's Eve, you're like, hey, what's the bump at 12? You know what I mean? I'll be good after that, or 11:59. At
Right.
12, you stop doing drugs. So you do that one, but then like honestly, like they're overdosing. I mean, it's a nationwide. You need the black tar heroin.
That's
That
insane.
what West Coast is white powder. East Coast is black tar, and the white powder is coming over to the East Coast, and people aren't used to that race mixed, and
Yeah.
mixed with the Colombian tar versus something else.
Right.
And
well,
they're
we even talked about
overdosing
it
from
even
that
with
too.
when we had Pat McGee on and Adam Lincoln
Yes.
Health. They did the story with oh my gosh,
We were talking to
Vice,
him
and
about
they had
that.
Dope Signation, and they were talking about all that crazy situation that's happening in Florida. And are any of you guys EDM listeners? Because sometimes I feel like a lot
Wait,
of
let
these
him answer. Let him answer. You cut him off. Are you
Well,
an
no,
EDM
well,
listener?
the only
I
reason why
have
I'm
some friends that are some very big
well, the
EDM
only
producers.
well, the
Yeah.
only reason
Yeah.
I say this
Love
is, and
it.
I want to get your two thoughts on this, because I feel like with the youth nowadays, it seems like they're taking a lot of their hardcore drugs when they go to these huge EDM festivals, and they do them for like the first time ever, and then you're wondering why they're passing out from overheating, exhaustion. Do you kind of see that as being a huge problem, going into the 2020?
I think, for me personally, it's like a bad design of drugs, because when I was young and I was living in England, the club scene is huge, and ecstasy and MDMA and those drugs are readily available, and they're incredibly cheap. They
Yep.
come from Amsterdam, and everybody from the age of about 14 to the age of about 22, you're doing that every
Doing it.
weekend.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
so the fact that you've got these kids who are now going to EDM shows, they're ODing on their first thing. It just makes me think, man, like there must be some really, really nasty stuff in that.
There is. Well, a
Right.
lot of it is people are also just cutting like a drug that may not have been as serious because there's it was pure before. You had the newer drug dealers coming out trying to double that profit, triple that profit, and they're cutting it with stuff that is even more toxic than the drug.
Right.
And I mean, and so that and their first experiences, and then being in
Right.
hot environments, dancing, having the sweat. So yeah.
Well, yeah, and then they probably take a more of a heavy dose that they probably shouldn't have, but they're seeing their one friend that's like, I've already been to like 4.
Right.
This is gonna be so much fun. This little bump or whatever, it's gonna be like the greatest feel ever. And then all of a sudden, you see some of your best friends and they pass away.
Yeah.
And I know with you, Simon, you were telling me a lot with this Musket and the Rat that it really related with you the most. And why is that? Is it because of the kind of childhood experience growing up, or
the
just
opioid crisis is
Yeah.
right in my right in the 5 line of everything that I've gone through. Some of my friends who I grew up with, who were the sons and daughters of advertising executives in Beverly Hills, live on the streets now. They're
Right.
living under bridges. They're going dose to dose, hanging out with cardboard signs, and it's very surreal when you put a blind eye to it. You treat it as a lost cause with no real solution in sight. And Musket and the Rat, that's what this is. This is what's happening in the basements of houses all over the United States.
wow?
Blanket addiction, blanket codependency, psychological problems that are interconnected in a way that just create this web of toxicity, and everybody who comes within it just gets trapped in. And yeah.
And do you think like stories like Musket and the Rat, that's why it's so important for our generation to keep going to theater, to see our lives or even our friends' lives, and we notice as a mirror put back onto us?
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that to me, that's exactly what theater is. It's a mirror in front of the audience to see really what the reflection of what is currently happening, and that's exactly what happens to Musket and the Rat. And I'm not gonna lie, like the whole drug thing and everything like that, like it's not something that I necessarily personally relate to, but there was so much about Musket, even though she's all about that. Like she's literally, you know, the local drug dealer, and that's what she knows and that's her life. But there was so much more about this character and about this story that I personally related to, you know, growing up in Israel in a completely different society. That to me was something so relatable, like how loyal she is, how much she loves her family, the sacrifices that she would make for the people that she loves. Like that's something.
What's the biggest difference of the culturally where you grew up in Israel versus where Musket's growing up in Chicago? Obviously, there's like drugs and all that, but I mean, like, what culturally, what's that biggest difference that you had to try to find that bridge as an actor?
Well, actually, Israel isn't too far off different from the U.S. I think the main difference for me, I mean, it's a complete
educate us, because I'm very interested with that, because I don't think enough millennials even know anything about Israel.
Yeah, we don't. Well, for our listeners, we don't live in tents. We don't ride on camels. We're past that. It's been a few years. But
it's been a few years.
Yeah.
You know.
But no, honestly, like it's a completely Western country. Like it's, you know, not too far off from where we live here in Los Angeles. So me personally, I grew up in Ra'anana, which is like a suburb in Israel. And so, yeah, it's like there was definitely, it was a more middle class society. So it is very different from the south side of Chicago, like where this is taking place, where this is like the hood, and there's a lot more poverty, a lot more crime. And so again, luckily we had Sammy Horowitz, the writer of this play, who was absolutely brilliant, and it still blows my mind every time to think that this is actually the first play that he ever wrote, which is insane.
I love it.
It reminds me of Mother Bleeper in the Hat.
And that's exactly.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And
that's
I mean, I'm sure I could say it because it's like the title of the play, but they were little kids just walking by, so I was like, I'm going to bleep that.
Well, sometimes I feel like the youth doesn't want to go to the theater because it always seems like you've seen like King Charles, you know, and then they're like, oh gosh, I feel like
what is wrong with King Charles?
It feels like that's what you go
I
to
love
go
the
with
Royals.
your grandma or
Hey,
something.
Megan,
like,
I love you. I wish I was you.
You only saw your grandma at Christmas. You need to see her again back in April, and then when July comes back around, one more theater house, okay? Hey, but please stick around, everybody. This is the Chris Collins Show. We got, you know, the phenomenal news story theater play. It's called Musket and The Rat, and we got the director Simon Lees, and we got actress Maya Schnaider here in the studio. So stick around because we got a lot more to talk about.
And for those of you who have been streaming with us this morning, please continue to listen to our show by going to thechriscollinsshow.com and click the on-air button.
That's right.
We'll be right back.
Hey, what's good, everybody? We're back in the studio. This is Just Talking, and our guest today is director Simon Lees and actress Maya Schnaider. And let's get right on into it. I mean, you know, we're seeing that the television and film industry is starting to take a turn where they're starting to see a lot less people going into the theater house because, you know, these theme park rides that we'd like to know as Marvel films, you know, they're really starting to dictate over. And so to switch it with the theater aspect, where do you guys see this going in the 21st century, especially with this new decade that we just embarked on?
Man, I hope to see some entrepreneurs take technology and integrate it into live theater.
Right.
You've
like
got
AI. I'm sorry. I'm like obsessed, like really weirdly with AI. I would totally do a kissing scene with an AI robot.
Stop!
so awesome.
I would, dude.
That would be so
oh my
awesome.
God, it'd be so hot.
Or
Sorry.
an actor by
find
proxy.
any way to kiss anything.
That's not
You're
true.
married.
That's not
You
true.
just said
That's
you-
why I'm an actor.
Oh,
That's not true.
That's where we all got into acting.
we all
No,
got
I
an
did.
acting
I
suit.
became an actor to make millions travel the world and kiss fine people. Unfortunately, the first person I had to kiss on stage was an ugly, pimply, just he was so nice, but it was like his pimples were gonna burst,
Are
and
you
I was
doing
really afraid to
Hunchback of
kiss
Notre
him.
Dame or something? Like,
Sorry, I'm just saying it was a bad casting.
well, have you guys had any bad experiences on stage that you would like to share as well?
Oh man, yeah.
Okay.
If you
Yes.
don't mind, I'd love
Yes.
to take the lead on
Please,
this one.
please.
I did Equus in community college.
No, you did not.
Yeah,
Ooh,
community
I love
college
it.
in a horseshoe
Wow.
theater. Okay?
Oh yeah, hello there.
Yeah, so
hello
there's
there.
no hiding. There's no shadows.
I'm gonna see
I
the
was
little
well
woo, woo,
lit.
woo, woo.
I was totally naked on stage. And
Did you do the penis like shot?
I definitely did. I
love
did.
it.
I made
love
it clap.
That's great. You made it clap.
I
So-
remember having to read that play in college because, like, a lot of with me, I was always in just the television and film world, and I never really got introduced with theater. And it really took me a good 2 years to really appreciate how much theater can be influenced into something like a huge film production per se.
Yeah.
And I know one of the big films that I'm gonna keep saying is gonna win Oscar of the Year for Best Picture, 1917. I know Sam Mendes spoke out and he said, if I didn't have any of this kind of theater credit to be able to control this large mass of extras, I don't think I would be where we're at today and have that kind of impact that 1917 is having.
Well, 1917 needed more naked bodies then. If we're on this
Oh.
conversation.
Maybe they
All
needed
right,
Simon.
We need some clapping. What about for you, Maya? What was your
where do
most embarrassing? Or like
You have to
different?
have
I mean,
at
not
least
embarrassing,
one.
but just like
Was it
your-
an audition? Like, have you ever had like one where you just go in and you totally tank and then they call you back the next day and they're
Oh,
like, we
all
want
this-
you?
Yeah, all the time. I had, well, this one audition that I can think of, this was like years ago when I was still back in New York. And so I was called in for a piece, and I had 2 auditions that same morning that went absolutely terribly. So I came into this one, and I was already late, and I was pissed. And I came in, and I had to do this monologue that was like really sweet and really tender and about like my love for my grandmother and all this stuff. And I loved that monologue. And I just came in, and I was so pissed that I did it in a way that was completely off. And they were like, oh, that was really interesting. Now, can you sing? And I'm like,
Oh.
I absolutely cannot. But on the spot,
But
like,
you
what are
want-
you going to say? You have to
Yes.
say yes. And I'm,
Every actor says yes.
yeah. And I,
So, do you
sure.
well, let's throw it back to Simon. Simon, do you guys do that as like a trick question sometimes where you go, hey, could you sing? And you just want to see how honest they are?
No, not me. I
No,
don't
you
ever
don't play
do
with
that.
them like
no,
that?
So
no.
cool.
You're
So
a good
cool.
one.
Oh God, that's mean.
But I mean, like, I always laugh about these
is mean.
situations. I was kind of telling Marissa before we got on the air. I remember hearing the story that Jamie Foxx was talking about how he tried out for Jerry Maguire, and he was talking about how it was so difficult to work with Tom Cruise because he was so used to being on television. And I kind of relate television with theater because you got to be really loud and you got to talk like this. And then Tom Cruise is talking really soft. Like this. So he's like, hey man, can you speak up just a little bit? I can't hear. And he goes, dude, if you just knew the lines, you know exactly where we're going. So
That's
yeah, he
awesome.
lost it to Cuba Gooding for that
And
role.
actually, it's quite known that Jamie Foxx had a problem with memorizing lines and coming in prepared. And when he booked Ray Charles, Will Smith, with really good friends, he was bombing it. Like, he wasn't doing it. And Will's like, you got to, like, take it serious, know your lines.
Well, is that
It's so
That's amazing.
true. I mean,
And then
there's
he knew his
so-
lines and came in and got it.
Because, you know, there's just so much freedom with knowing your lines, and then you can just play. Like, I remember with our process.
Yeah, Maya.
Oh, God.
Oh, no, tell the story. Tell the story, Simon. How does Maya with her lines?
She's good. She's solid. She's solid. When she
Eventually.
does the
Eventually.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's good. No, she's solid.
I sense so much sarcasm in that voice. I mean, maybe we should let Maya tell this story.
So, no, honestly, like, Simon, throughout this entire process, has been, like, such a godsend. Like, such an incredible director to work with. No, seriously.
Just God.
Because
Just God. He's just a
Godlike for his first directional debut. You were godlike. Remember that, everybody.
Part of the actor's warm up is to bow down to
Yeah,
you when you walk in.
well,
We're doing a
I
stretch.
said
And
God
he goes,
send.
"And scene."
God send. No. But here's why. Because he was open enough to let us do whatever the hell we wanted, and there were
Nice.
no limits. Like, literally, every rehearsal would be different because it was not only that we were allowed to, we were expected to really explore
I hope so.
the hell out of each
Yeah.
line.
So
out of
boring
each
9
character.
weeks otherwise.
And
Oh,
that's,
yeah,
and
for
that's a
sure,
lot of
for
trust
sure.
for you, Simon, because it's not like the film industry where you can just go cut. You know, you got to let that scene roll.
You
And
have
like,
to,
how do you
yeah.
approach
Okay.
that with the process?
Have you
of
ever
these-
had an actor in the middle of like producing or directing something, like screw up and just say cut, start again? Has that ever happened to you?
No, they go. Okay, hold on. End scene.
End scene.
End
Oh
scene,
no,
end
not the end scenes. Oh no.
I love how they
See,
put
that's the
themselves in their
benefit
own
of
room.
knowing theater before film, for me at least. Yeah.
Well,
you
that's
don't
insane.
have that
I mean,
luxury.
Well, how do you get that kind of patience going into theater? Do you advocate for more film directors or any up and coming to actually try to explore the theater realm and try to direct more theater pieces, or do you think, hey, it's only for those special individuals?
You gotta be crazy.
You gotta be
If
crazy.
If you wanna work with actors live on stage. I mean,
Because they'll drive you nuts, right?
We're like
Maya
kitty
drives you
cats.
nuts.
No, we're like kitty cats trying to wrangle kitty cats.
someone herding cats. That's what you're trying to
Herding
do
cats.
with a
It's true.
357. You know,
Yes.
that's what it feels like. But you got to be really patient. You got to have a lot of empathy. You got to be willing to just walk into a situation where maybe on the day that you walk in, you feel like everybody hates you, and you just have to wade through that energy and sometimes drop the hammer and be a dictator and scream and yell sometimes and then be very, very nice a moment later and then sometimes psychologically manipulate and
it's just that certain look.
I
that you
expect
get,
psychological manipulating from a director.
Yeah.
I expect
she's
it.
my Shelley Duvall.
Especially-
She's Shelley Duvall. No way.
Yeah, Maya, you probably get the look from Simon like, you know you're blocking. Don't start switching it up now, please. Okay, please.
A lot of that, yeah.
Like, and how? I'm sure has that happened? Like maybe in Musket and the Rat, where someone has like gotten out of place and then the wrong blocking space, because I can only you can't do that in film, right? I mean, if the camera's facing one way, you know.
Well, again, I think. Sorry, I was
Because
just-
it motivates
No,
the
jump
story,
in,
right?
Jump in, Maya,
But
jump in.
that's exactly the beauty of this whole process. That really, up until I don't know, maybe the last 2 weeks of rehearsal, it was literally all about just exploring. There was no step blocking. There was no like you have
Good.
to be here at this certain line or whatever. It was really like letting the organic raw moment flow and like making the discovery through that, which I think.
So you
was
sound
really-
like one of my favorite directors. You need to cast me.
Yeah.
There's my plug.
Yeah, no. Hey, just the shameless plug.
and Maya, you're glad I'm not your understudy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would have kneecapped you. I'm gonna tell you right now, like
Some
anybody out there,
Tonya,
do not have me be your understudy. You will get kneecapped. Tanya
I
Harding.
give
I'll
that
remember
respect,
that. I'll
Simon,
remember that.
because it's like you're allowing your actors and actresses to kind of find that space, and I feel like you gotta like let them kind of touch everything, even the props and stuff.
I get really pissed off if an actor's doing the same thing.
Oh my God,
over
yes.
and over.
Because
and
you
over
want to
again.
see if
Well,
other
it's-
things could work.
And
Maybe
and
they
it's
might
like
bring
they're,
something.
They're
that-
telling you to your face that this first idea that I have is the best idea.
And
There's
the
no
only
idea
idea.
better than this. And any way that I perceive in my head to be wrong is obviously not the way that it should be done.
Yeah.
And then when you get caught into that cycle, then you're like, okay, man, like I'm gonna try this way, I'm gonna try that way, and if I can't get to you eventually, then I'm gonna have
And
to. I'm gonna
and
scream at you.
as you know, I'm a trained actor also on here, and I noticed I did LA acting first and then theater acting. So I was so
Yeah.
used to like you only have limited time going in, so I was trained of like here's the one good thing, and I got kind of stuck in that, and I wasn't listening to what was happening on stage, and I found that taking movement classes, Grotowski, you know, anything that allowed me to actually get out of my body
Yeah.
and
Right.
viewpoints
Right,
and
right.
listen
Yeah,
not only
viewpoints
to like
is
my
great.
actor but like the space, then you will never, the actor itself, you will never get trapped in the I'm doing the same thing, because the actor then gets bored.
Right, right,
Bingo.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I can see that.
my theater knowledge for you.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up something interesting to me, Marissa, just because you know you're talking about the LA audition process, and my first thought when I was thinking about you, Maya, was it's like, okay, you're from New York, you're this cool cat out there, and I'm thinking it's got to be like if you can master New York and come to LA, it must be like, psh, please. But you're shaking your head, kind of with. Am I
Agreement.
wrong?
No,
Agreement. Oh, so
absolutely,
you feel like
absolutely.
having that kind of East Coast influence, it's really kind of shaped the person that you are today,
Oh,
especially going to
totally.
the West Coast.
Totally.
That's wild. I mean, but
yeah,
explain
I
more
fi-
with that.
yeah.
I mean, like, have you done?
Well,
East
I
Coast?
feel that New York actors have a stronger leg with theater. He says no. For the
Really?
ones
No,
I have
Simon, let
seen
me-
on
have to have
theater.
more
No, no,
grit.
let her- I
You
want-
Well,
have
let's
to-
make this West
Okay.
Coast, East
Yeah,
Coast
oh,
debate.
I
I
hear it.
like
What's
this.
the difference?
I like where
Come
Simon's
on.
going. Stop.
Simon
He's
loves
like,
us
stop
West
playing,
Coasters.
girl. Stop playing. Stop
right.
playing. So,
Tell us.
So,
so Simon, let them know what's good.
Simon first and then Maya.
Yes.
Orphans debuted at the Matrix Theater. Joe Stern put it on with Joe Pantoliano and Lane Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is one of the ultimate plays of all time. That started in L.A.
Right.
That was written in a pool
That's
house.
right.
in
West
Hollywood.
Coast. Hey,
So that's some
hey,
some
hey.
shots fired
Frias
right
loves
there.
you.
So
Frias loves
Maya,
Now,
what
I
is
want
your
you to
rebuttal?
defend the East Coast. Defend. Go.
all right. Well, let me tell you.
I'd cut her mic off.
Ah!
Because I'm West Coast. Whoa.
It's West Coast every time. We just,
Sorry about that. I gotta get some West Coast gangster.
okay, Marissa.
All right.
Yeah. Stop playing, girl.
Go ahead, please. Please defend.
Okay, so this has been my experience since graduating. Was 4 years of waking up at 5 a.m. to go sign
Oh my
up at the
gosh.
Equity at the Equity building. You know, because I'm non-union up until this point. Thank God. So
Simon, thank you.
so it was waking up at 5 a.m. in the blistering cold of New York, like, you know, in the middle of February, signing
Right.
up at 5 a.m. just to wait the entire day, literally at the same building until 5:15 p.m. when you're told, sorry, we're not seeing any non-union actors, like you're all let go. And then, like, that was literally
Especially when
like,
you walked or
then you
took a
booked your
bike.
plane ticket to Los Angeles
And
because
that
none
was
of
it.
us wake up before 7.
You're like, I'm so sick of this cold, and now you get to live in this
Oh,
sunny
nice
But
summer.
where can everybody find your show?
Yes,
This is
and
the last
tickets.
weekend, right? Where is
No,
it?
Musket
next
and The
week.
Rat
Next
is,
week, okay, good.
well, Friday, Saturday this
Sorry, let me turn it
weekend.
down so you can hear it. Go, take your time. Take your time. Take your time.
We're like, put it down, put it down.
You can see Musket and the Rat at the Arena Stages in Hollywood on Las Palmas Boulevard, and it's going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday next week, and Friday, Saturday this week. And curtains at 8 p.m. and house opens at 7:30.
And listeners, you guys can go ahead and just Google Musket and the Rat.
That's
It'll
simple.
show all the reviews. They actually are really good reviews. So
Yeah.
I'm going to try and catch this show. 'Cause
Yeah,
I'm
next
like,
week, let's go.
Yes.
I'm all down for that, and find me a babysitter. And yeah.
Bring Lilac to the theater. No, I'm just kidding. No, you don't want that.
definitely not the play to bring kids to. Definitely not.
They're saying, please,
No.
not Musket and the Rat. That's
No.
right. We don't want to teach them
No
at a
ba-
young
no-
age.
no baby
Heroin
lilac.
and
No
marijuana,
baby lilac.
no. None of that devil's lettuce.
No.
Love it.
All right.
All right. And I just want to remind all the listeners out there that this is director Simon Lees and this is actress Maya Schnaider. Go and check them out now at musketandtherat.com. What's good? I'm Chris Collins. For more updates on the future of our generation, be sure to subscribe to our channel and check out thechriscollinsshow.com. Peace.